November 1941, North Africa. General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, faces a fortress that defies every rule has ever known. Tanks burn, men falter, and yet the enemy does not break. Who are these soldiers who can withstand relentless assault, who endure where logic says they should fall? In Tobruk, the most dangerous opponent Rommel has ever faced is not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most numerous, but the one who refuses to yield. Stay with us because the answer to how he was defeated lies hidden in the story you're about to witness. Now, I have a question for you, and the answer is hidden somewhere in this video. What made the British soldiers at Tobruk so deadly that even Rommel, the Desert Fox, admitted they were his most dangerous opponent? Was it their numbers, their weapons, their bravery in battle? Keep watching carefully, because as we follow the siege, the answer will reveal itself, but only if you pay attention to how they fought, endured, and refused to break. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The 27th of November, 1941, 2:14 a.m. North Africa. The desert is silent, but the silence is deceptive. Inside a dimly lit command vehicle outside Tobruk, General Erwin Rommel bends over a sheet of paper. A candle flickers in the stale air. Sand grinds against steel outside. His Afrika corpse has just been pushed back again. By every known rule of warfare, this should not be happening. He commands the most mobile armored force Germany has deployed outside Europe. His panzer divisions shattered France in weeks. They outmaneuvered armies that outnumbered them. They humiliated commanders who believed static defenses could stop modern steel. And yet here, in a wasteland of dust and rock, something is wrong. Rommel writes to his wife, Lucy, not to Berlin, not to the high command, not to history, to his wife. And in that letter, words never intended for propaganda, never shaped for morale. He admits something that no German communique will ever record. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The British soldier, he writes, is the most dangerous opponent I have faced. Not the most numerous, not the best equipped, the most dangerous. This is not a public boast twisted into myth. It is a confession written at 2 a.m., when exhaustion strips away performance and only truth remains. The world believes North Africa is a sideshow. Germany prepares to invade the Soviet Union. Resources flow east. Reinforcements are delayed. Supplies are thin. Berlin expects Rommel to hold the line, nothing more. But Rommel does not hold lines. He attacks. Within 72 hours of arriving in Africa earlier that year, he had ignored explicit orders to remain defensive. He believed momentum was survival. Speed was armor, aggression was protection. It had always worked before. In 1940, he led the 7th Panzer Division across France so quickly that even German headquarters lost track of him. The French called it the Ghost Division. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. It appeared where it should not be possible. History insists that kind of commander does not stall in a desert siege. And yet Tobruk stands, encircled, bombarded, outnumbered. Still standing, Rommel studies intelligence reports that claim the defenders are undersupplied and fragile. Italian forces failed to break them. Berlin assumes British morale is collapsing. Rommel does not trust that assumption. In another letter weeks earlier, he had written, "The enemy positions are carefully constructed. Whoever built them understood exactly what they were doing." That observation lingers, because recognizing competence is different from respecting it. Respect must be earned. And tomorrow he intends to earn the right to dismiss them. He does not yet understand that by dawn, the desert will teach him something he has never been forced to learn. The 11th of April, 1941, 5:30 hours. The sun has not yet cleared the horizon when the first German tanks begin to move. From Rommel's vantage point. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The operation is simple, clean, predictable. By every known rule of mechanized warfare, Tobruk should collapse within hours. He has 2 German divisions, reinforced by Italian units. He holds air superiority. His armor has already proven its dominance in Europe. The defenders are surrounded, cut off from major resupply, trapped between desert and sea. No rational commander would expect a prolonged resistance. The plan follows textbook blitzkrieg doctrine. Feint at multiple sectors, identify the weakest point, concentrate armor, rupture the line, encircle, annihilate. It has worked in Poland, it has worked in France, it has worked everywhere. Rommel has personally commanded. At 5:30, panzers cross the outer wire. Dust rises behind them like smoke from a funeral pyre. At first, there is little resistance. Forward positions appear thin. German officers report encouraging signs. Artillery response is limited. The perimeter seems brittle. Rommel watches through binoculars. This is the moment he has always mastered, the split second when defenders begin to fracture. Except they do not fracture. They hold. Then, without warning, artillery opens with terrifying precision. Not scattered, not panicked, pre-registered, calibrated. As if every avenue of approach had been anticipated weeks in advance. Anti-tank guns reveal themselves only when German armor is fully committed. Overlapping arcs of fire converge on the advancing panzers. Within minutes, burning vehicles scar the sand. By noon, the attack has stalled 6 hours. That is all it takes for the illusion of inevitability to dissolve. 38 German tanks are destroyed. Not damaged, destroyed. The penetration is shallow, barely a mile inside the defensive belt before a coordinated counterattack slams into the exposed spearhead. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Infantry, artillery, and armor move in disciplined harmony. No panic, no collapse, no surrender. By every known rule of siege warfare, surrounded forces should conserve strength. They should retreat in layers, trading ground for time. Instead, the defenders counterattack into the strongest point of penetration. History insists that encircled armies break, but here they advance. Rommel's forces withdraw to their original positions by nightfall. In the command vehicle, the candle burns again. The tone of his letter shifts. He no longer writes of formidable positions. He writes something more unsettling. They fight like men who have already accepted death. To a commander who built his career studying how armies break, this is a disturbing observation, because soldiers who fear death can be maneuvered. Soldiers who accept it cannot. And that realization plants a doubt, small, almost invisible, in the mind of a man who has never needed to doubt himself. But doubt, once born, does not stay contained. It grows. May 1st, 1941, 4:45 hours. Rommel does not hesitate. He doubles down by every known rule of armored warfare. Failure after a limited assault demands overwhelming force the second time. Concentration is victory. Mass is momentum. Shock is survival. So he commits nearly everything. 7 panzers. This is not a probing attack. This is the hammer. The desert wind cuts across the battlefield as German armor advances once more toward Tobruk's perimeter. The defenders have endured weeks of siege. Supplies are rationed, the garrison is tired. Surrounded forces are not meant to withstand sustained armored thrusts. Logic says this ends today. The first defensive belt falls quickly. Wire is breached. Forward trenches are overrun. Dust clouds obscure the horizon as German tanks push deeper than before. 4 miles into the perimeter, from Rommel's command post, the sight appears decisive. This is what breakthrough looks like. This is what France looked like. This is the moment defenders usually fracture. But something is wrong. The British do not contest the initial penetration. They yield space deliberately. No rational commander gives ground to armored divisions unless they have something waiting behind it. Then it happens. Anti-tank guns that had remained silent open fire simultaneously from concealed positions. Artillery meticulously pre-registered saturates the penetration corridor. Infantry strongpoints, previously dormant, erupt from the flanks. The panzers are not breaking through. They are inside a trap, a killing sack. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. German armor is now too deep to withdraw quickly, too exposed to maneuver freely, and too concentrated to disperse under artillery fire. Tanks attempt to pivot under pressure, but overlapping fields of fire turn movement into suicide. Within 2 hours, 41 additional panzers are destroyed. Burning hulls illuminate the desert floor. Smoke replaces dust. Rommel watches momentum evaporate in real time. By every known principle he has mastered. This should not be possible. Encircled forces should not possess this level of coordination. Communication lines should be fractured. Morale should be brittle. Instead, the defense is elastic, calculated, ruthlessly patient. The Afrika Korps withdraws again under relentless fire that night. The letter is longer, more reflective. Rommel admits a grave miscalculation. These are not the forces he studied before the war. The British soldier here, he writes, thinks differently. And for the first time, a pattern begins to emerge, not of German dominance, but of German adaptation to an enemy who refuses to collapse. But adaptation requires time. And time in the desert is measured in fuel, ammunition, and blood. May 3, 1941. Night. The battlefield is quiet again. Wrecked panzers still smolder beyond the wire. Recovery crews move cautiously under intermittent artillery harassment. The siege tightens, but confidence does not return. Rommel studies the reports in isolation. By every known rule of war, encircled troops degrade. Ammunition diminishes. Communication falters. Coordination collapses into confusion. Officers become cautious. Initiative disappears. That is the pattern. But Tobruk refuses the pattern. In his private correspondence, Rommel attempts to understand what official dispatches cannot explain. He writes that the British at Tobruk display a flexibility normally reserved for elite formations. Their artillery fires with discipline. Their counterattacks are timed precisely at moments of German overextension. Their infantry does not crumble under armored shock. This observation unsettles him more than the tank losses, because tactical mistakes can be corrected, but an opponent who refuses to behave predictably is something else entirely. Berlin still frames North Africa as secondary. The coming invasion of the Soviet Union absorbs attention. Supplies arrive inconsistently. Fuel shipments are vulnerable to interdiction. Replacement tanks are slow to reach the front. Rommel cannot afford prolonged attrition. No rational commander initiates repeated frontal assaults against prepared positions without overwhelming logistical support. Yet he cannot withdraw either. To retreat would surrender initiative, the very weapon that has defined his career. So he probes again, smaller thrusts, testing, searching for weakness. Each time, the response is controlled, calculated, never reckless. British units rotate positions within the perimeter, preserving stamina. Artillery ammunition is rationed but delivered with precision. Defensive belts are layered so that no single breakthrough guarantees collapse. Rommel begins to see that Tobruk is not merely defended. It is engineered, not just with wire and guns, but with patience. The defenders absorb pressure without overreacting. They counterattack only when advantage is mathematically certain. By every known doctrine of blitzkrieg, speed creates panic. But panic never comes. Instead, something more dangerous emerges. Confidence. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Rommel writes to Lucy that the British soldier here fights with a calm acceptance of hardship. Heat, sand, isolation. None of it appears to fracture their will. This is not dramatic heroism. It is endurance. And endurance is the one variable blitzkrieg was never designed to defeat. As days stretch into weeks, the siege becomes a contest not of movement, but of nerves. Rommel has built his legend on momentum. Tobruk is forcing him to fight without it. And a commander who cannot dictate tempo begins to confront something he has rarely experienced. Stagnation in war is never neutral. It either hardens one side or breaks the other. Mid-May 1941. The siege grinds on. The desert heat intensifies. Engines overheat, radiators clog with sand. Men ration water more carefully than ammunition. Rommel studies comparative strength reports. On paper, the advantage remains German. The Afrika Korps fields modern armor. The 88mm guns, originally designed for anti-aircraft roles, have proven devastating in direct fire. Tactical flexibility remains superior. Italian divisions provide numerical reinforcement, even if their effectiveness varies. By every rational calculation, sustained pressure should fracture Tobruk's defense. And yet, it does not. Rommel begins to analyze not just terrain, but temperament. He writes privately that the British soldier does not react emotionally to armored assault. Instead of scattering when panzers appear, they withdraw methodically into secondary lines designed precisely to draw armor into pre-measured engagement zones. This is not accidental bravery. It is structural discipline. The defenders understand that German strength lies in rapid exploitation, so they deny exploitation. They do not overextend during counterattacks. They strike, inflict damage, and return to prepared ground. They conserve strength like men who understand time favors them. Because it does. Across the Mediterranean, British naval forces harass Axis supply routes. Fuel convoys are delayed. Spare parts arrive late or not at all. Every destroyed panzer is more than metal. It is a logistical wound that cannot quickly heal. Rommel recognizes a strategic imbalance emerging beneath the tactical surface. His men are fighting with precision. But they are fighting far from home. The defenders are fighting with precision and with reinforcement. He does not admit this publicly, but in letters, he acknowledges something that contradicts the myth forming around him. He underestimated not the weapons but the system. British defensive engineering at Tobruk is layered in depth. Artillery observers are positioned to cover fallback lines. Anti-tank guns are camouflaged and relocated frequently. Communication between infantry and armor functions despite siege conditions. By every known rule of encirclement that coordination should degrade over time. Instead, it sharpens. Rommel begins to sense that Tobruk is not simply holding. It is learning, and each failed assault strengthens the defender's confidence while eroding his own operational momentum. The Desert Fox has built his career on unpredictability. But now he faces an enemy who refuses to be surprised. And the most dangerous opponent in war is not the strongest. It is the one who adapts faster. Rommel must decide whether to escalate once more, risking further armored losses, or alter strategy entirely. Either choice carries consequences, because in the desert, hesitation is fatal. Late May 1941. Supply tables, fuel tallies, casualty sheets. The numbers are no longer abstract. Rommel reviews the operational ledger inside a command tent thick with dust. Tank strength is declining, engines require maintenance that spare parts cannot fully address. Fuel stocks fluctuate with every intercepted convoy crossing the Mediterranean. By every known principle of offensive warfare, sustained attack requires sustained supply. Rommel does not have it. Berlin's attention is fixed elsewhere. Operation Barbarossa looms. Resources shift eastward toward the Soviet frontier. North Africa becomes strategically peripheral, a theater expected to hold, not dominate. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Rommel has never operated as a holding commander. He thrives on decisive movement, on breaking rhythm, on collapsing enemy morale through speed. But speed consumes fuel, and fuel is arriving late. Meanwhile, Tobruk remains defiant. Reconnaissance reports confirm that British defensive positions continue to rotate personnel efficiently. Artillery response times remain consistent. Counter-battery fire is accurate. Patrols probe German lines at night, testing vulnerabilities. Encircled forces are supposed to shrink inward, conserving energy. Instead, the defenders project outward pressure. Rommel begins to grasp the broader strategic architecture. The British are not merely surviving the siege. They are tying him down. Every panzer committed here is a panzer unavailable elsewhere. Every week spent grinding against Tobruk delays offensive flexibility across the desert. No rational commander willingly allows himself to become fixed in place. Yet Rommel cannot disengage without political consequences. Tobruk has become symbolic. Berlin expects progress. Italian command expects vindication. Prestige is now intertwined with strategy. And prestige is a dangerous motivator. In his private reflections, Rommel admits something profound. The British soldier here exhibits a stubbornness rooted not in recklessness, but in training and cohesion. They do not collapse because their system does not collapse. He recognizes that Blitzkrieg's core assumption that shock induces psychological breakdown is failing in this environment. The desert absorbs shock. Sand swallows speed. Heat slows momentum. The defenders endure. Rommel is confronting a reality he has rarely faced. A battle of attrition. And attrition is a language Germany cannot afford to speak for long in Africa. The question now is no longer whether Tobruk can be taken. The question is how much it will cost to keep trying. And cost in war is rarely paid immediately. It accumulates. Slowly, relentlessly. June 1941. The desert hardens. The invasion of the Soviet Union has begun. Operation Barbarossa consumes Germany's focus, manpower, and logistical capacity. Entire armored armies surge eastward. North Africa fades further into strategic background. Rommel feels the shift immediately. Reinforcements slow, replacement tanks arrive in smaller numbers. Requests for additional air support are delayed or denied. By every rational calculation, Tobruk should now become a containment operation. Surround, isolate, wait. But waiting is not in Rommel's nature. The answer to the question I asked at the beginning is this. The British soldiers at Tobruk were the most dangerous opponent Rommel had ever faced, not because of numbers or weapons, but because of their endurance, discipline, and unyielding will. They adapted under pressure, coordinated flawlessly, and refused to follow predictable patterns. Every calculated assault, Every overextension of German forces only strengthened their position. It was their refusal to break their patience, precision, and cohesion that made them Rommel's greatest challenge. He orders continued pressure, limited assaults, artillery harassment, night probes. He searches relentlessly for weakness, convinced that somewhere within the perimeter exists a seam that can be torn open. Each attempt yields resistance calibrated to the exact level required, no more, no less. The defenders refuse emotional reaction. They do not celebrate visibly. They do not overextend after repelling attacks. They absorb pressure with almost mechanical discipline. Rommel begins to understand that Tobruk is no longer merely a battlefield. It is a mirror. Every offensive instinct he has built his reputation upon is reflected back at him, contained, countered, neutralized. In private correspondence, he writes that the British soldier here displays a curious duality, calm under fire, yet aggressive at precisely chosen moments. He had once believed British doctrine overly rigid, predictable, bound by procedure. Tobruk disproves that assumption. Here, rigidity has become adaptability. Every defensive line is layered. Every fallback position pre-sighted. Every artillery battery mapped to overlapping kill zones. Rommel recognizes the intellectual architecture behind it. These are not improvised trenches. They are deliberate systems. By every known rule of warfare, surrounded troops fight hardest at the beginning of a siege when hope still exists. Months are passing, hope should be fading. Yet resistance intensifies. The siege is no longer a question of firepower. It is a contest of will. And will is difficult to measure until it breaks. Rommel senses that his own forces, though disciplined, are beginning to feel the strain. Heat casualties rise. Maintenance crews work without pause. Italian divisions waver in confidence. The myth of inevitability is dissolving. The Desert Fox, once defined by unstoppable advance, now confronts a defense that refuses to yield narrative control. Tobruk is teaching him something uncomfortable. Momentum is not dominance. Endurance is endurance, when paired with intelligence, becomes a weapon. The question is whether Rommel can adapt fast enough to survive the lesson. July 1941, 43 degrees Celsius in the shade. The siege has become routine. Routine is dangerous. By every known rule of prolonged warfare, familiarity breeds erosion. Fatigue seeps into command decisions. Soldiers normalize danger. Small mistakes accumulate. Rommel feels it in briefings. Reports once filled with aggressive language now carry cautious undertones. Battalion commanders request clearer reconnaissance before committing armor. Maintenance officers warn of transmission failures increasing under constant strain. The Afrika Corps remains formidable, but it is no longer fresh. Inside Tobruk, something equally subtle is unfolding. British patrols venture farther beyond the perimeter at night. Artillery fires fewer rounds but with greater effect. Snipers target German observation posts methodically. Defensive lines shift in small increments, confusing German mapping efforts. The defenders are no longer simply reacting. They are studying. Rommel senses the psychological inversion taking place. At the beginning of the campaign, German forces dictated tempo. The enemy adjusted. Now, Tobruk dictates tempo. German assaults are anticipated. German feints are identified. Even supply movements appear monitored. No rational commander allows himself to become predictable. Yet siege warfare narrows options. Routes of advance are limited. Terrain channels movement. The desert exposes every column from miles away. Rommel writes again to Lucy. He does not romanticize the enemy. He does not exaggerate, but he acknowledges something definitive. The British soldier in Tobruk possesses a stubborn steadiness that transforms defense into offense. They counterattack only when probability favors them. They conserve strength with mathematical discipline. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. They refuse dramatic gestures. This calm, he implies, is more dangerous than aggression. Because aggression can be baited. Calm cannot. By every known principle of morale, encircled troops should exhibit cracks, desertion, panic, fragmentation. Instead, cohesion remains intact. Rommel begins to confront an uncomfortable truth. He has built his operational philosophy around shock and dislocation. Tobruk has absorbed both. If shock fails, if dislocation fails, then what remains? Attrition. And attrition in North Africa favors the side with secure maritime supply. Rommel knows this. He understands that time is aligning against him. Yet withdrawing would concede not just territory but narrative. And in 1941, narrative shapes political survival as much as battlefield outcomes. The siege tightens, but so does the realization that the longer Tobruk stands, the more fragile German momentum becomes. And fragility in war is rarely visible until collapse begins. August 1941, late night. Rommel sits again with candlelight, pen in hand. Tobruk still defies him. He has been writing to Lucy more frequently, not to boast, not to instruct, not even to rationalize, to confess. The letter is long, meticulous, almost clinical. Each sentence weighs the enemy's strengths against his own diminishing resources. He admits what he has avoided admitting in official reports. By every principle I have learned, the garrison should have cracked. It should have yielded under force. It should have broken after weeks of siege. It has not. The British soldier, he writes, does not fear death. They understand the mechanics of survival in a siege rotation, resource management, disciplined withdrawal, and they act in unison, as a single organism. Rommel does not flatter. He does not mythologize. He observes. They are patient, they are ruthless, they are precise, and they have turned the desert into a trap, not of geography, but of calculation. He acknowledges the true cost, the psychological toll on his own men. Disciplined phrase. Fatigue grows. Mechanized units suffer from constant exposure, constant threat, and constant fire. Tank crews sweat not just from heat, but from knowing that every engagement could be their last. He writes that this is not courage alone, not bravery alone. It is competence. The letters reveal what no operational report can. The British soldier at Tobruk fights differently. He does not act like an opponent to be crushed by speed or aggression. He acts like an opponent who refuses to be crushed at all. Rommel's tone changes subtly. He admits admiration, though carefully phrased. This is the enemy the Desert Fox has never faced before. Not one that can be outmaneuvered, not one that can be shocked into retreat, one that endures. The realization is brutal, immediate, and inescapable. The Afrika Korps has met its equal not in numbers, not in firepower, but in persistence, discipline, and will. And for the first time, Rommel is forced to consider an uncomfortable question. Can momentum alone ever defeat an opponent who refuses to yield? The candle flickers. The desert night is absolute. And for a commander who thrived on decisiveness, hesitation becomes a shadow. September 1941, dawn over Tobruk. The desert stretches endlessly, pale gold against the rising sun. Smoke still curls from last month's tank losses. The ground is scarred by artillery craters. Silence falls, but only for a moment. The tension is constant. Rommel rides along the lines, observing his forces. Faces are tight with fatigue. Mechanized units are worn, fuel shortages restrict movement. Every panzer counted becomes irreplaceable. By every known principle of warfare, this should be manageable. The defenders are encircled. The attackers have firepower superiority. Yet the pattern of failure repeats. Each assault costs more than the last. Each gain is temporary. Rommel reflects privately in another letter to Lucy. The British soldier is not reckless, but deliberate. They fight like men who know exactly when to advance and when to hold. They waste nothing. Every counterattack is measured, every withdrawal intentional. Their patience frustrates the pace of German operations. This is not mere tactical skill. This is psychological warfare. Each failed assault chips away at confidence. The men of the Afrika Korps elite, seasoned, battle-hardened, begin to whisper about exhaustion, about supply, about the impossibility of victory. Rommel realizes he underestimated them, not just their defensive works, but their ability to endure, their cohesion. Their will. He had assumed the British approach to war was rigid, predictable, slow. Tobruk proves the opposite, flexible, adaptive, and terrifyingly methodical. The cost of underestimation is clear: tanks, men, momentum, and now morale. Rommel is forced into a calculus that makes no general comfortable: continue pressing against an unyielding enemy and risk annihilation, or adjust strategy and accept the strategic narrative he has tried to control slipping away. By every historical measure, the enemy is smaller, less equipped, and cut off. Yet they dominate through intelligence, discipline, and endurance. Logic fails to explain it. Experience alone cannot predict it. And somewhere in the quiet corners of Tobruk, the British soldier knows what the Desert Fox is discovering. Sometimes, winning is not about force. It is about refusal. The sun rises higher. The siege stretches onward. Rommel's reputation, built on momentum, is now under siege as well. October 1941. Midday, the desert sun beats down mercilessly. Dust and sand cling to uniforms, guns, and faces. Every movement is effortful. Every decision carries immediate risk. Rommel inspects the lines from a dune ridge. Smoke from destroyed panzers still clouds parts of the battlefield. Artillery pits, meticulously camouflaged, punctuate the sands. He sees the pattern now, not random resistance, but calculated design. Every defensive belt overlaps. Every secondary line covers retreat avenues. Every counterattack is timed to German overreach. By every principle of mechanized warfare, this should not be possible. Encircled troops should falter under pressure, become desperate, make mistakes. Yet here, the British soldier anticipates almost every move. They do not panic, they do not flee, they strike only when success is guaranteed. Rommel writes again to Lucy. The phrasing is careful, yet raw with recognition. They fight as if the desert itself belongs to them, not to us. And in this control lies their strength. The psychological weight of the siege grows. German officers express frustration with repeated failed assaults. Mechanized units cannot maneuver freely without encountering pre-registered artillery. Every assault, no matter how precisely planned, loses tanks and men. Supplies strain under constant attrition. The Desert Fox, once unstoppable, now experiences the creeping uncertainty of being measured, tested, and countered at every turn. He realizes the trap is not just physical, it is mental. Tobruk imposes a discipline that forces him into repeated miscalculations. Each commitment of force strengthens the enemy's position while eroding his own. By every known metric, he should have dictated the tempo. Yet the tempo now dictates him. Tobruk is no longer a fortress to conquer, it is a lesson in endurance, patience, and the limits of momentum. Rommel faces a chilling truth. His tactical brilliance cannot overcome an opponent who refuses the patterns he expects. And for a commander whose identity is built on unpredictability and rapid victories, this is more dangerous than any battlefield ambush. The siege continues. The desert stretches ahead. Every advance risks repetition, and every delay strengthens the enemy. The trap tightens, silently, relentlessly. November fade dawn. The morning air shimmers above the desert, heavy with heat and dust. The Afrika Korps is battered, yet still fighting. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more. Tanks line the perimeter, some smoking from previous skirmishes, others ready but fatigued. Men march with rigid discipline, but their eyes betray exhaustion. Rommel walks among them, observing. By every historical measure, his forces should dominate. Armor superiority, trained divisions, air support, all present. Yet the British soldier continues to defy expectation. In private letters to Lucy, Rommel admits a rare humility. These men, they are not like any I have faced before. They adapt faster than we can react. They endure longer than we can attack. It is no longer a question of tactics. The siege has become a test of willpower. German assaults, calculated and methodical, meet the calm, deliberate, and patient resistance of the British. They counterattack only when advantage is certain. They retreat only to prepared positions. Every movement is intentional. By every known principle of blitzkrieg, speed should induce panic, shock should produce collapse, momentum should decide battles before endurance can matter. Yet Tobruk has turned those principles on their head. Rommel now recognizes a fundamental truth. Winning is not always about overwhelming force. Sometimes it is about refusal, persistence, discipline, cohesion under stress. For a general defined by rapid conquest, this is a profound challenge. Each failed assault chips away at not just his operational momentum, but his confidence. The desert no longer responds predictably. Tobruk has taught him that even brilliance has limits. He writes in the letter, "The British soldier does not merely survive, he defines the battle through patience. Every miscalculation we make strengthens them. Every overextension feeds their control." Rommel is forced to confront what few generals do. The enemy's capability is not measured solely in numbers or firepower, but in mental fortitude, coordination, and an almost machine-like discipline under pressure. And in the middle of the desert, surrounded by both visible and invisible threats, the Desert Fox learns that sometimes the most formidable opponent is not the strongest or fastest, it is the one who refuses to break. The stage is set for the final reckoning. December 1941, night Tobruk. The desert is quiet, but the silence carries the weight of months of conflict. Fires still smolder across the battlefield, illuminating the scarred sand. Rommel sits alone in his command vehicle, pen poised over paper, candlelight flickering across his weary face. This is the moment he has been preparing for, not an assault, not a tactical maneuver, but reflection. The truth he has recorded for Lucy is finally complete. The letters, private and unfiltered, reveal what no report ever could. The British soldier is the most dangerous opponent I have ever faced. Not the most numerous, not the best equipped, not even the bravest in spectacle. The most dangerous, because he refuses to follow predictable patterns. He adapts under pressure. He endures hardship that would break ordinary men. He coordinates, anticipates, and perseveres, even when surrounded. He fights not for glory, not for propaganda, but because he has mastered patience and discipline beyond expectation. Rommel's previous assumptions that the British were cautious, rigid, slow were shattered here in Tobruk. The soldier he faced did not collapse under repeated attacks. He did not flee. He did not panic. Every calculated assault, every overextended advance, only strengthened the defender's position. In those letters, Rommel writes what cannot be hidden. It is not armor, artillery, or air superiority that defines victory. It is the will to endure, the capacity to fight with precision under impossible odds, the refusal to yield even when logic dictates surrender. The Desert Fox had been outmatched, not by numbers or technology, but by an opponent who refused to break. History may forget the details. Films may glorify speed and armor. But here, in candlelight, in private correspondence, Rommel admits the undeniable truth.